So this is the story of the Caliche pit. The Caliche pit was if you went west from Highway 1, which was not very far from the village there, there's a railroad track that followed it and all that. But anyway, if you went west from there about a mile, there was a kind of a dog leg in this dirt road. Maybe you'd turn right and you'd go 50 meters, and then you'd turn left and you'd go on toward the mountains west. Well, along the way, there's a Caliche pit. And you're climbing all the way. It's just a gentle climb, you know. And you get up in this Caliche pit. Well, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers have been mining that Caliche and using it for filling sandbags for bunkers. And it's even good for paving roads. They crush it and stick that stuff out. And so here's this nice cleared off mountaintop of Caliche, what we call the Caliche pit. And that is if you didn't keep going straight, you'd turn right into that Caliche pit. And then you go down this little hill, and that's where the real jungle starts. I'm talking triple canopy shit, you know. Dark, miserable, hot, ugly, all that. And we went exploring down in there for, an hour. Didn't see anything, didn't encounter any enemy, got called back. So we're rolling back. Well, the enemy had seen us go down this little dirt road. And they marshaled a whole bunch of guys to come up and ambush us on the way back because they knew there was only one way in and one way out. And we're going down this damn road, and we had jeeps and gun jeeps and all kinds of vehicles around us. And by this time, let me back up a little bit. By this time, Lieutenant Robinson had been replaced by another lieutenant. Now, he's still alive, so I won't give his name. But, and in the reorganization that took place because of the damage, vehicle damage and so forth, I got reassigned from my track to be an assistant on 2-6. The new lieutenant needed somebody that knew a little bit about armor. I was the only guy in that whole platoon that had any armor background. Everybody else was cavalry. And so he wanted me on his track. So I'm assigned to 2-6 as a side gunner advisor to this new lieutenant. And we have a TC that's the normal TC on that vehicle. Big old tall Western kid, cropped hair, nice as could be, just a really nice guy. And real quiet, you know, not a big mouth or anything like that. And boy, we go right into it. Coming back from that jungle area, wham, we'd passed the Caliche pit, we'd gotten about halfway back to Highway 1 before the dog leg, and they lit us up something fierce. And this time they had recoilless rifles and RPGs. They were ready for an armored column, and they were going to wipe us out. And they had plenty of men to do it. Well, we turned to face the enemy, but we've got all these jeeps with us, and these jeeps are mounted with recoilless rifles and so forth, and jeep-mounted cavalry. God Almighty, this firefight you felt like you couldn't stick your head up above the rim of the track, you'd get it shot off. Bullets were whining over the top of your head and just zinging right and left, and you can hear this little, it's kind of a funny sound. It's like something that not normal people ever hear, but it's this real high-pitched little short duration whine, you know, like that, just wing, and it kind of echoes. And if it's close enough to you, you can hear it breaking the sound barrier as it goes by. It's kind of a pop, kind of a hollow, like if someone set a firecracker off inside of a oil drum, you know, just a pop, a little hollow pop. And that was pop, 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 pop. You're hearing that going past your head. Well, we didn't have a machine gun on the right side of 2-6, and I was standing on the right side of 2-6. And uh, Duckworth was on that track also as the M79 grenade launcher and observer, and he's firing off M79 grenades at this little bamboo line, you know, where the enemy obviously was, and we're laying down a base of fire. All I had was M16. And I'm laying down this base of fire and reloading, you know, and my barrel would get hot. I'd grab another M16 and start shooting. And why the bullets were coming so hot and heavy that I wasn't going to stick my head up above that rim of the track. And so I just put my M16 over the edge of the track and I start firing, you know, and I'm keeping them down into the armor, and I'm shooting. Well, what I didn't realize is that during this, the lieutenant had given the command to turn, and these tracks do a neutral steer, they call it, where one track goes forward and the other one goes backwards, and they just rotate in position. And we're getting turned around so we can head back up to get cover in that Caliche pit. And goddamn, there was a Jeep right behind us. And this just kind of explains to you some of the goofy shit that happens in combat. But I'm shooting blind over the edge of that track, and I rotate around, and my line of fire just peppered the shit out of the engine of this Jeep that had been behind us. And I hear this thunk, thunk, thunk on the side of the track, and I'm thinking, well, that doesn't sound like combat, you know. And bullets are still flying. I kind of peek over the edge, and there's the sergeant, and he's standing there with his arms on his hands on his hips. He's beating on the track with his helmet, and he says, "You son of a bitch, you shot my Jeep." And he's just standing out in the open. And I looked over at his Jeep, and there's water and shit oil flowing out of the front of that Jeep. And I was like, well, I'm sorry, you know. And he says, God damn it, he says, you get out of that track and you hook my Jeep up, you're going to pull my Jeep back. Because he knew that we were headed back to the Caliche pit. I had no idea because I wasn't privy to the radio conversation. And it was like, okay, everybody, stop the war. I got to hook up this sergeant's Jeep. All fear left me. I just jumped down off the track. Bullets are pinging off the side of the track. And I walked around and hooked up the sergeant's Jeep with a towing strap, hooked it to our pintle hook, and opened the back door and jumped back in and said, okay, Sarge, get in your Jeep, we'll pull you back up there. Like we were a towing service on Highway 95 or something, you know. It was just, I looked back on that after we got up to the top of the hill and in the Caliche pit, and I was like, you have got to be shitting me. I did that? Why did I do that? What mental moronic bullshit goes on in your head? Not only to me, but that sergeant who had been desperately seeking cover. I had seen him and his men had dismounted the Jeep, and they're hiding behind the Jeep and shooting and stuff. And all of a sudden this ridiculous event happened. And here's this, all right, stop the war. This guy shot my Jeep. You guys can see that. Okay, don't shoot us. We're going to... And I've looked back on that 1,000 times in my mind, and I'm like, what in the hell were we thinking? You know, how did we survive that? I mean, we could have been, they were using machine guns for crying out loud, and they have nice juicy targets, a couple of GIs walking around like they're at a gas station. But anyway, that happened. Anyway, everybody got back up on the Caliche pit. Ambush now had us trapped. It was getting on to sundown. And that's an interesting story about that night too, and I'll tell it to you in the next part.